I have walked through countless corridors of human experience and observed a recurring truth. The soul that is truly alive does not measure its worth by the weight of its possessions, but by the profundity of its questions. You may look around and see people chasing titles, cars, and fleeting pleasures, convinced that a larger house or a fancier vacation will finally fill the emptiness inside. Yet, those who are spiritually advanced find no comfort there. Instead, they awaken each morning with a gentle restlessness, a sense that life itself is an invitation to delve deeper, to uncover layers of meaning hidden beneath the surface of routine. When you orient your life toward inner discovery rather than outward accumulation, you begin to notice the subtle joy that arises in moments of stillness, the way sunlight filters through leaves, the resonance of a well-turned phrase, the quiet comfort of a friend's unspoken understanding. These are not luxuries for the privileged. They are the birthright of every soul willing to look beyond the glossy veneer of consumer culture. You start asking yourself questions like, what does this experience teach me? Or, how can I grow from this challenge? Instead of, how can I make more money to buy more things? This shift does not happen overnight, and it is not always comfortable. You may find yourself at odds with friends who prioritize the next big purchase or the brightest social spotlight. You may hear well-meaning voices insisting that success is defined by profitability or popularity, and yet something within you resists that definition. You feel called to something more enduring, a purpose that outlasts any trend or transaction. This calling is the signature of a soul advancing in its journey, an insistence that life's true currency is not minted in gold, but minted in depth. You learn to celebrate milestones that cannot be captured in photos. The moment you forgive someone who hurt you, the insight that dissolves a fear you've carried for years, the spark of creativity that compels you to share your unique vision with the world. Each of these triumphs whispers to your soul, you are growing, you are alive. And as you gather these subtle victories, you discover a stability that no market crash or societal shift can unsettle. Your foundation is built not on shifting sands of material fortune, but on the bedrock of inner alignment. Of course, this path can feel lonely at first. You may seem unusual to those who equate happiness with a hefty paycheck or a designer label, but solitude is not the same as loneliness when your heart is full of purpose. By prioritizing meaning over materialism, you open yourself to experiences that money cannot buy, a sense of wonder at the vastness of existence, a profound gratitude for each breath, and an unshakable trust in the unfolding of your own story. These gifts arrive quietly, like a soft breeze that carries the scent of distant mountains, and they remind you that you are part of something magnificent. I encourage you to notice where you feel most alive. Pay attention to the activities that leave you feeling enriched rather than drained. Perhaps you lose track of time while reading a poem, listening to music that stirs your heart, or tending a garden with reverent care. These moments are signposts, pointing the way toward your soul's true path. When you honor them, you are effectively telling your inner self, you matter. Remember that this journey is not about rejecting all material comforts. Rather, it is about letting them serve a higher purpose. A modest home can become a sanctuary for reflection. A simple meal shared with loved ones can become a sacred ritual. Even a comfortable wardrobe can be worn as a reminder that we are free to choose what resonates with our inner truth. When you infuse the ordinary with awareness, you transform life into a continuous act of worship to something greater than yourself. So I invite you, in every decision you make, to pause and ask, will this bring me closer to understanding who I truly am? Will it help me grow in compassion, wisdom, and courage? Let those questions guide you more reliably than any price tag or status symbol. In doing so, you will find that your soul's voice grows ever clearer, leading you along a path that transcends the fleeting allure of material gain and reveals the lasting beauty of a life lived in search of meaning. Always choose depth over decoration. There is something unmistakable about a soul that feels everything deeply. It is as though life speaks more loudly to you, its beauty more brilliant, its pain more piercing. You walk into a room and sense the mood before anyone says a word. You hear what isn't spoken, see what others overlook, and carry emotions not only your own but those of the people around you. This is not weakness. This is not fragility. This is sensitivity, elevated into a form of wisdom. When your heart is tuned to that level of awareness, it is a sign that your soul is evolving. You may have grown up being told you were too sensitive, as if that were a flaw to correct. But sensitivity is a gift, and one of the most sacred traits of a spiritually advanced soul. The ability to feel with depth means you are attuned to the unspoken layers of existence, the things that can't be quantified, only experienced. When someone near you is hurting, you know it. When joy enters a space, it touches you as if it were your own. You do not build emotional walls easily, and that may make life feel heavier at times, but it also makes it richer. You experience life not through a filter of detachment, but through the full spectrum of its colors. This emotional intuition is not accidental. It arises from a deep interior maturity, a finely developed connection between the conscious and the unconscious. You are not merely reacting to surface events. You are responding to something deeper, something invisible but very real, the emotional truth beneath appearances. This awareness allows you to connect with others in a way that is profound and healing. People may not always understand why they feel safe around you, but they do. It's because your energy says, "I see you, I feel you. You are not alone." Such souls often become the quiet healers of the world, not necessarily through professions, but through presence. You may find yourself holding space for others, absorbing their burdens, and helping them process feelings they cannot name themselves. It's a beautiful role, but not an easy one. There are days when it all feels like too much, when the weight of others' struggles becomes your own, when your nervous system feels like a raw nerve. On those days, you must remember that your depth is not a defect. It's a reflection of your soul's ability to hold more than most. You were never meant to numb yourself to survive. In a world that often favors speed over depth and logic over emotion, your ability to feel is not a limitation, but a signal of spiritual progress. You are learning to navigate life with a compass calibrated to empathy, not just intellect. That is the path of the evolved spirit, not to avoid suffering, but to move through it with grace, to transform it into understanding. With this gift also comes a responsibility. You must learn to protect your inner space, not by shutting others out, but by knowing when to step back and listen to your own needs. Boundaries are not barriers to love. They are the structures that allow love to flow without depletion. When you honor your own emotional rhythms, you can serve others without losing yourself. You can remain open without being overwhelmed. This kind of emotional presence invites a depth of connection most people only dream of. It is the soil in which true intimacy grows, where conversations become mirrors and shared silences become sacred. You don't settle for surface-level interactions because your soul longs to meet others where they truly are, and in those moments when you are truly seen and truly seeing, something extraordinary happens. Both souls are lifted. Do not be ashamed if the world feels heavy sometimes. You are feeling the heartbeat of a collective consciousness, and that is not a burden. It is a blessing. You were given this level of empathy because your soul can hold it, because your presence on this earth is meant to soothe, to awaken, and to guide. That is not ordinary, that is exceptional. So if you find yourself crying at beauty, aching for justice, or feeling joy when others are joyful, know that you are not broken. You are open. You are alive. You are a spiritually advanced soul, moving through a world that desperately needs the very sensitivity you carry. Never apologize for the depth of your feeling. Let it be your compass. There comes a point on the spiritual path when you begin to notice something subtle but persistent. You don't quite fit in. It's not that you're incapable of connection or that you lack the desire for belonging. In fact, you often crave it deeply. But there's a quiet realization that you see life through a different lens, that your thoughts wander beyond the usual conversations, and that what excites others doesn't always stir you in the same way. This experience of feeling misunderstood, or even misplaced, is not a failure of your character. It is a sign that your soul is evolving beyond conventional boundaries. Many people live within the comfort of societal norms, finding identity in what is familiar and widely accepted. But a spiritually advanced soul begins to question what others simply follow. While the world rushes toward more noise, more consumption, more control, you are drawn toward less, toward simplicity, toward silence. And in that divergence, isolation sometimes blooms. It can feel like you're walking through a crowded street with an invisible barrier around you, present but apart. This loneliness isn't the result of arrogance or elitism. It stems from authenticity. When you begin to live in alignment with your deeper self, you stop pretending. You stop laughing at jokes that hurt others. You stop engaging in conversations that feel hollow. You withdraw from circles where your presence must be edited or diluted to be accepted. And though this retreat is necessary, it can feel like a loss. There may be moments when you sit in the quiet of your own space and wonder, why does no one really see me? Or, is there anyone out there who feels this too? But this solitude, as painful as it can be, is sacred. It is the space where the soul begins to speak most clearly. Without the distractions of external approval or societal roles, you start to hear your own inner voice, raw, unfiltered, true. And often what that voice reveals is not what the world wants to hear. It tells you that love is more important than success, that kindness holds more power than ambition, and that presence is more valuable than productivity. These truths make you seem strange to some, even threatening to others, who are still entangled in the performance of identity. You may also notice that certain relationships fall away, not in bitterness, but in quiet necessity. The conversations that once sustained you now feel forced. The spaces you once filled so easily now feel foreign. And this is not your failure, it is a sign of growth. A spiritually advanced soul often outgrows environments that no longer nurture its expansion. Just as a plant must be repotted when its roots have no more room to grow, your soul must move into larger spaces of meaning, of connection, of truth. There is grief in this growth. Do not deny it. Honor it. Allow yourself to mourn the version of you that was more easily accepted, more easily understood. But do not return to it, because what waits ahead is not isolation, it is alignment. Eventually your path will cross with others who have made the same journey, others who also know what it feels like to stand apart, not out of pride, but out of purpose. When you meet them, the recognition will be immediate. There will be no need to explain your silence, your softness, your strength. They will see you because they too have had to walk alone for a while. It's in these quiet, uncertain stretches of solitude that the soul is tested and refined. You are learning to find comfort not in crowds, but in clarity, not in applause, but in peace. The more spiritually advanced you become, the more you'll realize that true belonging doesn't come from being understood by many. It comes from being known deeply by a few, and most importantly, by yourself. So when you feel alone, do not mistake it for abandonment. It is not a punishment. It is preparation. You are being carved out, made spacious, so that when the right connections do come, you can hold them without losing yourself. The world may not always understand you, but that is only because you are here to bring in something new, something real, something timeless. Embrace your difference, for it is the mark of your becoming. There is a moment in every truly awakened life when you are forced to turn inward, not out of curiosity, but out of necessity. The outer world becomes too loud, too chaotic, too shallow, and something in you whispers that the answers you've been searching for will not be found in anyone else's approval, or even in the next breakthrough. They are waiting for you, buried in the one place you've been taught to avoid, your own inner darkness. Most people spend their lives running from the parts of themselves they do not understand. The insecurities, the anger, the envy, the guilt, all the feelings that are uncomfortable to face. But a spiritually advanced soul reaches a threshold where running is no longer an option. The soul begins to crave truth more than comfort. It wants to know itself, not just the good and the beautiful, but the hidden, the wounded, the abandoned. And so, you begin the work that few are willing to undertake. You begin the journey inward. It's not glamorous. It's not something you post about or share with ease. It's quiet and sometimes painful. You sit with memories you once buried. You notice patterns in your behavior that you can no longer justify. You hear the voice of your ego, and for the first time, you don't obey it automatically. You start to question your reactions, your motives, your fears. You begin to realize that much of what you thought was you was actually protection, programming, survival. And underneath all of that is something raw and real, waiting to be seen. This is what it means to do shadow work. It is not about becoming perfect or spiritually untouchable. It is about becoming whole. You stop trying to cut away your flaws like dead branches and instead learn to understand their roots. Why do I feel unworthy when I'm alone? Why do I seek validation from others? Why does anger rise in me when I feel powerless? These questions are not signs of failure, they are signs of awakening. The soul is tired of wearing a mask, and now it demands the truth, no matter how uncomfortable it may be. And in that truth, something incredible happens. You begin to reclaim parts of yourself you thought you had lost. The voice you silenced as a child, the dreams you abandoned to please others, the instincts you doubted because they didn't match the world's logic. All of them begin to return. Slowly, you piece yourself back together, not into the image of who you think you should be, but into the reality of who you are. Not polished, but authentic, not flawless, but free. This process isn't always welcomed by those around you. Some may say you've changed, become distant, too intense, too serious. That is because you are no longer playing the role they once expected. You are no longer willing to be less than whole for the sake of belonging. You are claiming your inner truth, and that can unsettle those who are not yet ready to face their own. Let them be. Your journey is not theirs to understand. What matters is that you continue to show up for yourself with honesty and compassion. Healing is not linear. There will be days when it feels like you've gone backward, when old fears return and you wonder if any of your progress is real. But it is, because now you see those fears for what they are. They no longer control you without your awareness. They rise and you witness them. That is mastery in its purest form. Not the absence of darkness, but the ability to hold it with light. Eventually, the pain you once avoided becomes the source of your greatest wisdom. The parts of you that were once hidden in shame become the roots of your empathy. You stop judging others for their brokenness because you've made peace with your own. And from this place of integration, you begin to live not in reaction, but in response. This is the transformation that defines a spiritually advanced soul, not escaping darkness, but walking through it and emerging with light in your hands. You become a mirror for others, not because you preach, but because you live in truth. And that truth carries a quiet, unshakable power. It reminds others that they too can stop running, that they too can find peace within themselves. And in that reminder, you fulfill your soul's deeper purpose, not just to awaken, but to help others do the same. The light you seek is the light you become. As the soul grows, something begins to shift deep within you. You start to crave simplicity, not out of lack, but out of clarity. The need to prove, to chase, to collect. These impulses begin to fade. You realize that fulfillment was never in the excess, never in the noise. It was always in the stillness, in the moments in between, in the quiet breath that passes unnoticed by a world too busy to listen. A spiritually advanced soul begins to detach, not because it is cold, but because it is awake. It no longer clings to what is fleeting, because it has tasted something eternal. This detachment is often misunderstood. People think it means not caring, or being distant, or emotionally unavailable. But true detachment is the opposite. It's not about turning away from life. It's about being so fully present in it that you no longer need to control it. You no longer need everything to go your way in order to be at peace. And you've come to understand that change is constant, that people come and go, that things break, plans shift, and nothing in the external world can be relied upon completely. And because of that, you stop resisting. You stop gripping life so tightly. And in that surrender, a strange kind of peace begins to unfold. You begin to love without needing to possess. You offer your time and energy without demanding anything in return. You help others without seeking validation, and you let them go when it is time, without bitterness. This is not emotional numbness, it is emotional freedom. You are not disconnected, you are unentangled. You no longer confuse attachment for love or control for safety. And this is perhaps one of the most powerful signs that your soul is evolving. When you start detaching from outcomes, your entire relationship with life changes. You still set intentions, you still make plans, but you are no longer a prisoner to them. You do your part, and then you let go. You trust the process, not because it always gives you what you want, but because it always gives you what you need to grow. You begin to see setbacks not as punishments, but as redirections. You no longer collapse when things fall apart, because you've learned that every collapse clears space for something more aligned to rise. This detachment also brings you closer to yourself. When you are no longer consumed by the need to hold on to things outside of you, you create space to go inward. You begin to ask yourself what truly matters. Not what others told you should matter, but what resonates with your spirit. Often the answers are surprisingly simple. A quiet morning, a meaningful conversation, a moment of awe under the night sky. You realize that peace doesn't live in achievement, it lives in alignment. This kind of detachment requires practice. It doesn't mean you stop caring about the world, but you stop letting it define your worth. You may still grieve, still feel joy, still fall in love and get hurt, but you hold these experiences gently, knowing they are passing visitors, not permanent fixtures. You allow them to come and go without losing yourself in the process. And the more you do this, the more you find that nothing owns you anymore. Not a relationship, not a job, not a title, not even a belief. You start seeing yourself more clearly too, without the distortions of fear or ego or longing. You begin to recognize the soul underneath it all. And what you see is not broken, it's not lacking, it's not waiting for the perfect moment or person or situation to become whole. It already is. It always has been. Detachment reveals what the noise of the world often hides, that your peace, your power, your essence has never depended on anything outside of you. This awareness changes how you live. You move with more grace, more ease. You stop forcing. You stop chasing. You become more available to the present moment because you are no longer resisting it. Even in chaos, you can find your center. Even in uncertainty, you remain rooted. This is what true detachment gives you. Not distance, but depth. Not withdrawal, but wisdom. And the more deeply you anchor into this way of being, the more you become a source of calm for others. They may not understand how you remain steady in a storm, but they feel it, And without needing to say much, your presence begins to teach. It tells others, through example, that peace is not found in controlling life, it's found in trusting it. Let go of what was never yours to hold. There is a certain shift that happens when your soul begins to rise beyond surface existence. You start seeing meaning where others see coincidence. You begin noticing signs, patterns, rhythms, almost like the universe is speaking its own language and you're finally starting to understand it. You feel nudges from something greater, gentle pulls in directions that make no logical sense but feel entirely right. Your dreams become more vivid. Your intuition sharpens. You no longer dismiss those quiet inner knowings as imagination. You begin to trust them. And that is not fantasy. That is the unfolding of spiritual awareness. A spiritually advanced soul does not just believe in something greater, it lives in alignment with it. There is a deepening connection to the unseen, not as superstition or blind faith, but as lived experience. You start to realize that the material world, for all its texture and weight, is only part of the story. There is another layer to reality, a deeper current running beneath everything. It shows itself in synchronicities, in the right people appearing at the right time, in words you needed to hear arriving when you least expected them. You can't explain it with logic, and yet it feels more real than anything you've ever touched. This sense of connection extends beyond religion, beyond doctrine. It's not about what you call the divine. It's about how you relate to it. You begin to see that everything is connected, that your thoughts carry energy, that your choices ripple out in ways you may never fully grasp, that love is not just a feeling, but a force, a kind of invisible glue that binds all living things. And once you sense that, truly sense it, it changes how you walk through the world. You no longer move through life feeling alone. Even in solitude, you feel accompanied. There is a presence, subtle yet constant, that seems to walk beside you. When things fall apart, you don't spiral into despair. You get still, and you listen. You ask, not, "Why is this happening to me?" but, "What is this trying to teach me?" That shift in perspective is profound. It turns pain into initiation. It turns obstacles into opportunities for growth. And that doesn't mean it stops hurting, but the pain becomes meaningful. It becomes part of a larger pattern your soul is beginning to see, even if your mind doesn't yet understand. You may also begin to feel a strong inner calling, a sense that you are meant for something, even if you can't yet define what that is. It's a quiet fire that refuses to go out. You might wake up in the middle of the night with a deep ache to express something, to help someone, to create something that matters. That's not ego. That's purpose. And while the world may try to pull you in 1,000 different directions, this connection to something greater keeps you anchored. It keeps reminding you, in whispers and signs, that your life has meaning far beyond what others can see. As this awareness deepens, your priorities shift. You become more interested in your inner state than your outer image. You care less about being impressive and more about being aligned. You start measuring success not by how much you've achieved, but by how peaceful you feel. You start choosing relationships that nourish your soul rather than flatter your ego. And you begin to realize that your intuition, that inner compass, was never wrong. It was just waiting for you to listen. The more in tune you become with this greater presence, the more your life begins to flow. That doesn't mean there are no challenges, but you meet them differently. You don't resist every twist in the path. You begin to see how even the detours carry a kind of grace. And over time, your trust in life deepens. You stop asking for guarantees. You start walking with faith, not because you know what's coming, but because you know you're not walking alone. This sacred connection, this inner alignment with something vast and wise and loving, is what carries the spiritually advanced soul forward. It's what gives your presence a kind of calm strength. People may not understand it. They may call it intuition or energy or divine guidance. But whatever words you use, you know what it feels like. And that feeling, that connection, it is the quiet miracle at the heart of everything. When you live from that place, every moment becomes holy. If any part of this message resonated with you, don't ignore it. Start listening to that deeper voice within. It's not your imagination. It's your awakening. This path isn't easy, but it's yours. So ask yourself today, what truth have you been avoiding? And what would happen if you finally faced it? Take one step today, just one. Sit in silence, journal your thoughts, question your patterns. Your soul is already guiding you. Trust it. Don't wait for permission to grow. You already carry the light you're seeking. Let this be the day you choose to follow it. If you feel different, isolated, or unseen, it's not because you're lost. It's because you're evolving. Keep going. You're not alone. Stop chasing what's fading. Start building what's eternal within you. Your spiritual journey doesn't begin someday. It begins now. Share this message with someone you know is quietly awakening. Let them know they're not walking this path alone.